Okay, so the movie Project Hail Mary is coming out.
Yep.
And so we decided to read the book before the movie.
Like adults.
Yeah, I know. How do you want to do this? Do you want to do an episode just on the book and then do an episode on the movie? Or
Well, it's going to be really hard for me to do an episode on the movie because of how I have not seen it.
Well, there's that too.
Yeah, just the book is great. And I'm glad we're doing it this way because I've been really excited to see the movie. I've heard such nice things about it. The kind of things that get me excited about a movie. Like, it's not cynical and it's, a throwback to a different era of storytelling. So that had me really intrigued. But then the book, well, it was fantastic. I'm really glad I did it first. Thanks for pushing me on that.
Dude, and just for full disclosure here, we realized the movie was coming out. I have travel. You have life things. And so, do I understand correctly? You powered the audiobook in about 2.5 days?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Comically. My parents are here. They're wonderful. And I just had an earbud in my ear all the time. And anytime there was any lull in anything, I had this on. And then I would fall asleep with it for the last 3 nights, staying up as late as I possibly could in anticipation of getting this conversation in with you. So there's a chance that there are going to be a couple places here and there that I may have actually slept through a bit, but I was not bored. It was sheer physical exhaustion that caused me to miss it. So, yeah, I'm glad we did it, but it was an adventure.
So let's do it. I think for the third chair, what I think I'd like to lay out here is we're going to go through the book, like as its major plot unfolds. We'll talk, you're excellent with stories, you being the humanities expert. I really enjoyed the science part, obviously. And people have been trying to tell me to read this for years. Finally did it because I wanted the book in my head before the movie. So Should we just start and go through the plot and just talk about things? Is that how we want to do it?
Yeah, and obviously everything's fair game. So if you haven't read the book yet and seen the movie, hey, we're going to ruin it. So here we go.
Yeah, let's go. Let's get started. Okay, the book starts with a guy waking up on a spaceship, which I think is awesome. I think that is, storytelling-wise, it's just so cool. What did you think of that?
Did you read any of the Bourne Identity books?
No, I did not.
Did you watch the movies?
Yes.
With Matt Damon? Yeah, that's what it immediately reminded me of, is, fun. Instead of this being exclusively a book about discovering what's going on outside of the protagonist, it's going to be like the Bourne Identity, where the protagonist has to figure out what's going on inside the protagonist, but not like, I have to work through my emotions and figure out how I deal with these feelings. Like, I have to learn my name. I have to know where the heck I am. And I loved the way the sequence unfolded, where this guy's got this latent, rich science knowledge, and he has to problem solve his own existence as though he's just stepped into creation. I thought it was a blast. Did it seem cheesy to you as somebody who knows all this stuff? Or did it work for you?
The moment I realized this book was to be taken seriously was when, our protagonist, Ryland Grace, he's being snarky with the computer arms that are keeping him alive. And he's like, oh man, I got a tube up my butt. And I listened to the first chapter with the kids. And when he said, there's a tube up my butt, the kids laughed. They're like, okay.
It wasn't just the butt.
I know. But the moment I knew that this was to be taken seriously is the moment he tried to figure out what gravity was. He got the stopwatch out. I've done that before. I've done a really interesting experiment trying to figure out the velocity of a little marble shooter by using a stopwatch and distance methods and just getting back to rudimentary kinematics and physics. I was like, okay, this is fun. He's about to say the equation D = 1/2 AD, and there it is, D = 1/2 AD squared. I'm like, okay, we're going to enjoy this. But the thing I did not think about is when he got the pendulum and he made the pendulum go back and forth. And I think the equation for pendulum is a square root of TL over G. I don't know what it is.
He said it, right?
Yeah, the period is equal to whatever. It's a square root of... No, it's not TL over G. That's linear tension. It's just length and gravity. And so when he did that in one part of the spaceship, and then he went to a different position vertically in the spaceship, and he did the experiment again, I thought, okay, this is to be taken seriously. He's trying to decide if he's in a centrifuge, or if he's constantly accelerating, or if he's on another world from first principles. And I loved that. I loved it so much because it's like, man, if he was in a centrifuge, the pendulums would give him a different gravity constant depending on how far he was from the radius of the pendulum. I mean, the radius of the centrifuge. Anyway, I love that.
I just loved the concept of somebody having a mature adult brain, trained in all of this stuff, and just what a cool literary mechanism to have him not know himself or his environment, but he knows how to deduce it. A lot of times when I watch a movie or read a book, I feel like a measurement of whether or not this was worth my time is, have I seen this scene before? And I've never seen that scene before. Now, I wouldn't know how to solve all that. I would have a few tricks up my sleeve from casual, normal dude observation. But just to see him unpack it and rebuild the parameters of reality from scratch in one chapter, that was really, really fun. Now, you got a long ways to go in terms of learning who the character is and him figuring out himself. And that unpacks in the following chapters. Yeah, I was picturing you when all of that was happening and thinking, all right, this is going to set the hook for Destin.
It did. It absolutely did. And you compound that by figuring out that his crewmates are dead. And I was like, oh, man.
And he doesn't feel anything.
He's
like, oh, dead people, bodies. Okay. But then later in the book, he's shedding tears.
But there was a little bit there. He was kind of shielding himself from those emotions. I thought that was interesting. Then after that, it kicks into what I think is an amazing literary mechanism. The parallel, how would you say, the storylines begin parallel. So he starts remembering things that happened on Earth. And so then we have this life in the spaceship, and then we have this life on Earth. And when we understand that the star, Sol, is dimming, and humanity on Earth are going to die in an ice age, and we don't really understand why, but we do get, I don't know, this glimmer of like, okay, we've got this astronomical data. I thought it was very interesting because there were some things in there that were plausible, and I was doing the well actually thing in my head. I was like, yeah, the sun's dimming. There's a solar cycle. And he basically adds sentences in the chapter that's like, hey, yeah, you well actually guy over there, Destin, I know you're reading this book. I'm going to throw the sentence in there to shut you up.
Okay, now truth, I don't have a lot of knocks on this book. Those were one of the few things that took me out of it occasionally. And we're talking like the tiniest, this isn't even a real complaint. But if this book had been written not in the era of YouTube and the internet and Reddit, there were about 100 sentences that wouldn't be in the book. Because you and I both know what it is to finish a video and then be like, okay, somebody's going to want me to acknowledge that the Hebrew tradition from the Masoretic text here instead of the Septuagint, it doesn't help my video at all. But I have to say this sentence or...
Well, actually...
Yeah, and they're right. It's just not the point, but fine. Here's the sentence just so we can stay on track. So you have to do things that kind of get you not on track in order to keep people moving forward. And you've done that, right? You've had sentences in videos that are just there to cover a base and acknowledge, yeah, we know, let's get on with the thing.
1,000%. And it's annoying because you're making the video for the general audience and yourself, but you have to do this one thing to be like, okay, just so you know, I know. It's not a virtue signal. It's a technical flex. That's what I was trying to figure out. Sometimes he would say a thing and it's like, okay, that's a technical flex. But I couldn't tell if it was a technical flex or was just to shut up the well actuallys. I couldn't figure that out. That was a little bit like, okay, you said the thing. Now I know that you know that I know that we know. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. But what bummed me out about that is that it made me like Ryland like 5% less. Not much. Andy Weir's decision to feel that pressure from us, the audience, to feel like he had to do that, made the protagonist it made him feel artificially a little bit insecure in his narration when I don't sense that this is actually an insecure guy. I like the chip on his shoulder. I like that as we get into chapter 2, we figure out that he wrote this paper, maybe that's in chapter 3, and that it got rejected. And he was arguing that life could exist without being
water-based.
Water-based.
Right.
Yeah, and he got,
Yeah.
laughed at by scientists. And I like that it just kind of pissed him off. And he's like, I don't care. I believe what I believe. Screw the whole thing. I'm just going to go teach the next generation. Maybe they'll be more open-minded. It was awesome. I really like the character. But the cloud of internet chatter affected the book ever so slightly and made him seem insecure through Andy Weir's pressures in a way that I don't think Ryland Grace actually felt. And you've now heard literally my only micro knock on the whole book, which I loved.
Well, I thought it was interesting because he's arguing that life could exist that wasn't water-based. The claim was that it could evolve in this different environment and that could be possible. It reminded me of the fact that octopuses have copper-based blood rather than iron-based blood.
Come back now? What's that?
Yeah.
Do they really?
Yeah. So octopuses, we have hemoglobin that have iron, and that's the main transport mechanism for oxygen. They actually use copper, and I think that's awesome. And that was something that I was like,
what's the advantage of that?
I have no idea. I've told you everything I know about it. I have no idea.
So we got an old hot tub a few years back. You've sat in it.
Okay.
And when we got it and we had to get it all fixed up and get it working and everything, the hot tub people were like, there's another way other than dumping bleach in there to make it clean up your pee-pee and stuff. And I was like, all right, tell me more. They were pros. This is basically how they said it.
Yeah.
They're like, we can do this here, copper system. We put copper in there and you put a couple titanium plates and then you put a liquid copper additive.
Is it copper 2 sulfate, the blue stuff?
Yeah, the blue stuff.
Blue, yeah.
No, clean everything up. And so I've kind of familiarized myself with that system over the years and do maintenance on that with my buddy who knows it better than I do. And it's really fascinating. You can get Dasani clear tap water, just beautiful hot tub water that passes all the tests and is clean with just copper. And so I wonder if the octopi get some sort of hygienic benefit or cleansing benefit from copper, or if they get some sort of conductive benefit for neuroelectrical signals because of how they use every teeny tiny little detail of their skin or something.
No idea. No clue.
There's got to be an advantage. Now I want to know. You've piqued my curiosity and I've ruined our discussion about the book.
I wonder if
Don't
it
bring
has
up
something to do
octopi again.
with their camouflage. I wonder if it has something to do with that. Anyway, so when we discovered the Petrova line, I thought that was fascinating because I love the fact that it was discovered, this thin red line going from the sun to Venus. I love that it was discovered by a Russian, would it be astronomer, I guess?
Yeah.
And then it was instantly verified in Chile with the massive telescope they have there. And then you immediately knew, this is about to be an international effort. I started to get excited there because I was like, okay, we're all about to work together to do this thing. I don't know what it is, but we humans are about to work together to do this thing. And then we're introduced, blah, blah, blah. We're introduced to my favorite character, perhaps, in the whole book, Eva Strat.
I was going to ask you who's your favorite character and why is it Eva Strat? But you jumped it. I mean, yeah, I knew you were going to get along with her. Why do you like this lady?
She doesn't care. She's like, there is
but
a
you
problem.
like people who care.
Well, she's goal-oriented, and I have worked in bureaucracies for years, and the existence of her as a person is this huge, there's so many people that have wanted to walk into a room and be like, hey, soldier, make this person shut up because we're doing this, because it is the correct answer. The thing I liked about her is she had that level of power, but she also was humble enough to change her mind when presented with new information.
Repeatedly, and with very few words. She didn't apologize. She didn't do emotional things. I've known people from Eastern Europe, and I feel like they have a lot in common with people from the Netherlands and Belgium. Those are the most direct people I've ever met. I don't know why.
Really?
Eastern Europeans, Belgians, and the Dutch. They just say stuff. And a lot of times it's even hurtful, but I don't think they mean it that way. And it was really fun for me to picture all of my friends and associates I've ever met who are like that. And to realize it's a really realistically written character. They don't apologize for things, or if they do, it's sorry, and they meant it, and then we move on. I love the way when he called her out for, when Rylan calls her out at one point for using the end of the world as an excuse to just be a jerk.
Yes.
And she's like, fair, you're right.
Yeah,
Just,
exactly.
Okay, done, moving on.
That specific sentence stood out to me as well. No, he's like, no, you do not get to use the end of, yeah, exactly. I love that you saw that as well, but she was my favorite character.
Let's go back to that one thing real quick. So you internalized it. It jumped for you as well.
Yeah.
Did it inspire you to adopt that into how you handle relationships and apologies in any way?
Oh, I haven't thought about that yet. I mean, I've been working on being quick to seek forgiveness in my life in general. I've been working on that, but...
You're good at that.
Oh, you are too. That's not what Strat made me want to do. Strat made me want to have this thing we're fighting against. I think everybody wants that, man. Everybody wants a thing to fight against, to unify and like rally behind. And they also want the cause to be noble.
Yeah, okay. Quick pin in that. I want to round out the apology thing, and then we got to chase that down. What I liked about the way she responded to being wrong was how quickly she would acknowledge it, and then how quickly her expectation was, you were right, I was wrong, I acknowledged it, we have a task, let's go. Because of that thing we have a pin in, right? Because there's a big thing that needs to be dealt with. When I don't do it as much anymore, I guess, but when I did a lot of marital counseling and premarital counseling and stuff, I've told you this before. It was the Bare Naked Ladies principle. There's that one song where it's like, it'll still be 2 weeks till you say you're sorry. Yesterday in the living room, you remember the song, right?
Yeah.
Then the whole point is, I realized I was wrong, but it's still going to be 2 weeks until I say I'm sorry. A great metric for a healthy relationship, a healthy sense of self, a right attitude is how short you can get the time between the moment you realize you're wrong and you say you're wrong and move on. And Eva Strat, for somebody who seems emotionally dead inside, just ran laps around me in this whole book in terms of crushing that time down to zero. You're right, I'm wrong, moving forward. Sorry, moving forward. Yes. Why can't I do that? Because I'm embarrassed and I want to justify myself and I want to explain it so people won't think less of me. But every time she just said, good point, I'm wrong, moving forward, I respected her more. She didn't have to explain anything. I want to adopt that crap. I want to take the time down to zero between I realized I was wrong and I said I was wrong. And then I want to be like her and just be like, okay, yeah, we're done here. I was wrong. We've agreed upon it. Let's move forward to the bigger task, which is, in this case, how would you summarize it? The big arc of the book.
It's the existential threat that is astrophage depleting the energy from the sun. And I think when you read a book, a science fiction, or I have a friend who really likes magic type books, Brandon Sanderson books that have magic, there's a certain suspension of disbelief that has to occur in order for the plot to make sense. And I think the physical attributes of astrophage itself solve all the problems. I was trying to imagine how Andy Weir came up with this story. Like, did he outline this and then write it? And it's almost like he said, okay, I need all this to happen, and I need an existential threat, but I also need these things to happen. I need my astronauts to be able to survive an interstellar voyage. I sat in a lecture by Dr. Cassabry a couple days ago. He was talking about something that may happen in the future, which is fusion propulsion. It was something he's talked with us. I forget what chapter or what episode of Nut 'em Questions it was. He was talking about the biggest threat to interstellar space travel is cosmic radiation. What is it called? Cosmic rays? Or I forget what it's called. Long story short, radiation just blasting around all over the universe. There was a problem that had to be solved, and Andy was like, oh yeah, astrophage blocks that.
Right.
It's almost like anything that was a problem, astrophage just fixed that.
Okay, well, let's talk about the bad guy a little bit more, because you're coming at it from a scientific perspective. It's a well-designed bad guy in terms of a conundrum, a problem that would need to be solved, that would need people from all over the world, that would need people from other worlds in order to solve. But also from a literary perspective, this is a great bad guy, because let me just ask you a question. Who does this book ask you to hate?
Well, it starts off making you hate astrophage, but then astrophage becomes the savior because it has infinite ISP almost in terms of a rocket fuel.
Yeah.
And so it's weird because we start off hating astrophage, and then eventually later in the book, we're trying to save astrophage.
Yeah.
Which is a weird thing. And talking to my buddy Jeremy about it, he said, yeah, there's something about the book I didn't like. This was his opinion. There's the little boy part of me that wants a bad guy, like a legit bad guy in the story. This book, I would agree, doesn't seem to have a bad guy. There's not a person in the book that's like, I'm going to do evil for evil's sake. It's just everybody against space trying to kill you. It's just survival.
Yeah, this is man versus nature in the truest sense. But you don't, usually when you get the man versus nature storyline, you also get a hubris character who represents the arrogance of man, and that's the problem here. But you barely even get a whiff of that. Really, the only human bad guy here is institutionalism and basic human frailty. Yeah, a couple of the astronauts are in a relationship that probably isn't the best idea for the mission. Okay, well, you're not really mad at them for that, and they're not even on screen for very long. There's a couple of moments in a conference room where somebody's like, that guy's an idiot. He wrote a paper that was bad. Yeah, but then that gets corrected very quickly, and now everybody's playing ball together. Normally in these stories, you get a guy who's like, well, if we all pull together, we can do this. Oh, walking into the room, let me introduce you, everyone. This is Colonel William Charles Covington Cavington. I'll be taking over now. This could be weaponized for the advantage of the military. We could use it as a weapon. And everybody's like, no. And he's like, we're going to do it. And I have money from a corporation. And you're like, that guy's bad. He has a corporation and money. And then, of course, he dies from the thing he wanted to exploit.
Yeah, duh.
And it's comical and laughable and overplayed and ridiculous. And we just don't get that guy.
No.
Maybe they'll cram it into the movie because Hollywood likes that guy so much to make it simpler for audiences to have something to look at as a cheap morality tale. But at least the book, they didn't ask me to hate anyone. And astrophage isn't an anyone. It's like, I don't know, it's a space algae. What would you even call it? How would you characterize it?
Yeah, it was like a breakout event of like a balloon. Like the word phage, I don't know the Latin. He said astrophage, so star. What does phage mean? Do you know?
I don't. It said it in the text, like a consumer, an eater.
I'm Googling now. What does phage mean?
Like a pathogen?
I don't know. Phage, the Greek root phagos, meaning eater or to consume. Oh, it's a star eater. Okay, interesting. That was cool. Yeah, I didn't catch that while he was doing that. For some reason, I just zoomed over that. But I thought it was amazing. And the thing that was interesting is they figured out that Tau Ceti was not shrinking. We don't ever really get a description or an explanation as to why they call the Project Hail Mary. When I think Hail Mary, I think you're playing Nerf football with your buddies on the yard, and a Hail Mary is like, everybody run to the end zone, and I'm going to throw a Hail Mary, which is I'm just throwing it up, and whoever catches it, catches it. Is that what that means to you? Obviously, there's the Catholic meaning of Hail Mary, but what does Hail Mary mean?
Which I think maybe precedes the football reference by a little bit, but
just a little bit, yeah.
I'm not Catholic, but it's just a simple little prayer. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
So Catholic people pray to Mary.
They do, not the way you pray to God. Again, I'm not Catholic, and I want to treat how they understand things very fairly. So the quick version of this, Protestants do not pray to or commune with the dead. Protestant Christians believe we will reconnect with the dead in eternity, but that the gap between life and death, this world and the next, is enough to separate us from humans who've gone before us in death. Catholics and the Orthodox believe that that divide is a little thinner and that you can somehow commune with the dead, not like the dark arts or something, But, when you hear about Catholics praying to different saints and so forth, this is what they're doing. Well, Mary's top of the list in Catholic and Orthodox thought, which makes a ton of sense. I mean, she's the mother of Jesus. She's fantastic and faithful and awesome in the Bible and eloquent. She writes a beautiful prayer that's in Luke chapter 2. Like, really, if you go read the Bible, you see why people like Mary so much. She's just top flight, maybe the most impressive human. I mean, she's very, very impressive. So, without getting into all of the theology, there's unique value in praying to Mary. This is one of the timeless prayers to the top of the list human who you would want to pray to or commune with. And it covers sort of the entire human experience, but I think particularly the reason they latched onto it for the name of this book was the first line, Hail Mary, full of grace, and the closing line, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. You said to that first line. What did you catch?
Grace is the name of the astronaut. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Huh.
Pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. I think that's the key there. But there is a nod he has one line in there, right? About like a quarterback dropping back to throw a pass right in the middle of the book. At like the 50% mark, he has a line about that.
I didn't catch it. The Hail Mary is the project to go to Tal Ceti. They have this really awesome spin drive that they can, I mean, dude.
I don't get it. Can you explain it to me? I had trouble with that.
Yeah. You measure the efficiency of a rocket in terms of ISP, specific impulse. Oh, wow. Okay, I'm sitting here looking at the, I Googled the specific impulse of astrophage, and it says it's on the order of like 49,000 seconds, which is stupid because hydrogen and oxygen, like on the RS-25 engine, I want to say it's somewhere between 350 and 450 seconds. You measure specific impulse in terms of seconds. It's a really weird unit.
I don't understand. Is it thrust?
No, think of it as gas mileage. How much delta V you can get with a certain amount of fuel. Think of it like that. Delta V is change in velocity.
So in any of those 15 moments in the book where Ryland is like, what? That is impossible. It's 49 trillion gigawatts of Marty. Like when he's doing that whole routine, freaking out every time. I don't know what he's talking about. I just took it to mean it's exponentially, ludicrously more potent than anything that we use.
Oh, it's impossible, but it makes the book possible, which is fun. So it's E equal MC square. And he's like, oh, well, it's almost 100% efficient in converting energy to mass and back and forth. And it's just a really interesting tool to use in the book. And the fact that it's life is even more interesting because then it's got predators that could exist. Just a very, very interesting thing.
And I
love the scene when he's starting to figure out astrophage, all the little experiments he does. I love all that. That was really cool. But they figure out Tal Ceti's not being affected. And they're like, okay, I guess we're going to go to Tal Ceti. What did you think about him waking up and just, what would you do if you woke up and there were two dead people with you? Would you just kind of shoot him out the airlock like he did?
I'd do it a little differently than he did because I would think in terms of Christian burial rites and things like that, having buried quite a few people myself, it's a matter of my work. But yeah, I mean, that's what you do. That's the tradition of the ancient mariner, right? If you die at sea, you're buried at sea. That's what you sign up for when you get on a vessel. And space is the sea. All the same rules apply.
That's interesting. I don't think anyone's been buried in space yet. I mean, there could be some
that you know of. Bin Laden.
Some secret mission that the Russians did during the Cold War or something. Who knows what happened? But I think it's a fascinating thing that they died because instantly he has 3 times the food. And I thought that was an interesting way to extend his time aboard the spacecraft because in a submarine, you're limited by food for the crew. And so I thought that was fascinating.
Do you remember, did they ever spell out what happened with the other 2 crew members?
I think they just didn't survive the coma.
Was it mechanical malfunction?
Yeah. For some reason, they didn't survive the coma. It was just very risky. It was a good plot device. I thought it was cool.
There were a ton of good plot devices in this. All of the tension worked. I'll admit that by the time we got toward the final plot devices, I was a little exhausted. It kind of felt like that old movie from the 80s. It was called Space Camp, where all the kids from space camp got launched from, I don't remember where they got launched from, but they accidentally went into space. That could happen. Oh, what? Roscoe the dog sat on the launch button. Now all the kids got launched into space. They should have had a cover on that button. And then they all have to figure out how to get out of space, but stuff keeps breaking because there's a lot of bad things in space, I guess. And by the end of that movie, I remember as a kid being like, how many more things can go wrong in space? This is ridiculous. So it wore me down eventually, but where it got us to, I liked. But I'm running way, way, way ahead. Can I go back to a thing that you brought up and I cut you off on? I got excited about Strat's apology, and you were still excited about Strat just cutting through red tape. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you've seen and why that was so refreshing to you?
It's every government employee's dream to walk into a meeting and they're like, well, in fact, I was talking to a guy recently. There's a lot of conflicts in the world right now. I'll just leave it at that. I'm not going to talk about my opinions about all that. I'm just going to say there's a lot of conflicts in the world.
I'm going to talk about mine. I'm for all of them. Every conflict. Let's get that to an 11.
Oh, crap. So anyway, there's a lot of missiles being expended. Yes, there's a lot of missiles and interceptors being expended right now. So I was talking to a guy that worked on the program, or a program. I was like, dude, I know about the thing you do, and I know how often those things get used. And I also understand government procurement procedures. I'm what's called Department of, well, it doesn't matter. So basically, I got this certification on acquiring Defense Acquisition University, acquiring stuff for the military. And it's like years. You have to build it, and then you have to shake it, and you have to bake it, and you have to put it in the fungal environment, and you have to see if you like, well, does it work at this temperature? Does it work at that temperature? All these things. And he said, yeah, dude, now it's just like you have this big rubber stamp, and you're like, more. And he said, it's fascinating. Also, all these checks and balances, I don't know. There's just so much that's happening, and I hate it. However, I can remember sitting in meetings and being like, we have to what? Is that real? Like, you really have to have a person. It's like in the movie Office Space where the guy's like, yeah, I take the reports and I walk down, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so the idea of walking in and be like, no, we're not going to do that. We don't have time. And then everybody being like, yeah, she's right. We don't have time. That's just awesome. I love it. So I think everybody who's ever worked in a bureaucratic environment has always dreamed about saying, excuse me, this meeting is stupid. Can we just go do the thing? And she gets to do it all the time, and it was really fun. So
okay, well then here's a place where two of your particular interests intersect. Mm-hmm. I was scrolling the Twitter yesterday.
Oh.
I came upon a tweet from some account that had a ridiculous name with some English, some Cyrillic, some emojis in the name, an ambiguous, meaningless avatar. I clicked on the account, it just harvests clicks, and it's an absolute garbage account. But it had a great video that had millions of views there, lots of engagement. It was like a 65,000 frames per second shot of a bullet going into a, have you heard of a Prince Rupert's drop?
I've heard of that.
Just a lovely shot. This must be a very talented Twitter user.
Yeah.
Because they apparently bought all of this equipment. They procured a Prince Rupert drop. They figured out how to safely align that bullet and film the moment of impact. Mm-hmm. And I just thought, I owe this person a lot, and I'm really grateful to them. And I looked a little closer, and I could kind of make out a blurred watermark. It says "Smarter Every Day" right on it, right there.
Yeah.
Oh, weird. Weird. People are apparently stealing stuff on the internet now.
Yeah, no.
So I know that you feel very strongly about intellectual property, copyright, just respecting the work of artists, things like that. And there's a scene in this book where two of your interests come into conflict. You don't like bloat and bureaucracy and all the things you were just talking about. And Eva Strat represents a woman in a short skirt and a long jacket with a machete who can cut through red tape, which you like. But then the red tape that she's cutting through
cake
is intellectual property. What did you think of the court scene where she has to go in and make her argument about violating intellectual property and copyright to send all of the knowledge of everything into space?
I thought it was interesting. And it, like during World War II, when all these countries went to total war, all the rules kind of get thrown out.
What's the difference between total war and normal war?
Total war is when the entire society, like everything you can do in your society is focused on the war. Farmers change from like, hey, we're going to grow corn because that's the best for the market this year to, hey, I guess I'm growing cotton because that's what the government said we need for uniforms or whatever. Everything in society realigns to do something against the existential threat. It made me realize that's pretty interesting. That would probably happen.
Mm-hmm.
I did think it was a very, very interesting scene and probable. If we ever had a situation like this, I think it'd make a lot of sense. I think if the Voyager probes went out today, I think what we put on the Voyager probes would be very different. You know, we put the golden discs and all the things on there. I think they're in interstellar space now. I think it would be very different what we put on there. It's fascinating.
Yeah, but what did you think of her just being like, no, we're not doing any copyright acknowledgments. We're not paying anyone for their intellectual labor. This is happening. Bye.
I thought it was the correct answer. I also hated it as a person who makes things, but I thought in that situation, that's the correct answer. And so I think what would probably need to happen is a law would need to be passed to say like, hey, and it's clear that some law did happen, that Strat, whoever she is, has total authority and control. I could see that happening.
What is her last moment on screen? Do you remember?
Yeah, she's in the jail cell and she's making Grace go into the mission. I think that's the last moment we see her. And that's one of the things I didn't have resolution with at the end of the book. We haven't even met Rocky yet. We got to meet Rocky here in a second.
We're getting there.
I wanted to resolve the Strat story because I didn't know, like, once she launched and once it got saved, because of time dilation, I was like, she's probably dead by the time this happens. Or she might be dead. Or who knows? She might go to jail. I don't know. I thought it was pretty fascinating. I don't know. I would have liked to have had a nice little bow tied up on that one way or the other. But she did the right things, I believe.
I think she did too. Okay, at the end of this conversation, I want to ask you who the hero of this story is, but I'll save that question for now. Obviously, she is a candidate, and obviously, she's who we keep coming back to. I mean, she captured your attention and she captured mine independently.
Absolutely.
But you got this other character who's a really big deal. And I heard a few people rumbling around the internet being like, the trailers should not have revealed Rocky. They shouldn't have done it. People would have gone to Project Hail Mary without giving away the greatest thing in the whole movie.
See, I haven't watched the trailer, so I don't know what Rocky looks like. So I'm excited to go get to watch the movie after reading the book here. I'm pumped about that.
But after reading the book, I'm with them. They shouldn't have told us there was...
Did you watch the trailer?
Dude, it's just, I go to a movie theater, there's a trailer in front of me. I don't know. I've seen that trailer or a Project Hail Mary trailer probably 5 times in theaters. I could close my eyes and plug my ears and scream when it comes on, but it's really antisocial. I have friends who've been asked to leave theaters for less.
Yeah.
I just don't want to put myself in that position. So yeah, I think it would have been a lot more fun for me if I'd got to the scene where we meet Rocky and I had no idea that was coming.
Okay. Well, in the book, we do have no idea where it's coming, which is
wouldn't
why
that
I wanted
have
to
been
read the
nice?
book. Yeah. We're going and we have this blip on the radar screen. And that's fun. That's, there's something else. And it's
And that's what lends the name to the ship, right? That's how they came up with it?
Yeah, the blip A. I think what's so fascinating is he is looking at orbital mechanics and he's seeing things move around, and the fact that it's moving relative to him in certain ways, and it comes alongside and gets a parallel trajectory or velocity. He's like, oh, this is clearly an intelligent thing.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome because I've thought a lot about, my brain does this really weird thing. When I get on the interstate and I'm in the merge lane, you want your velocity, angular velocity, that is, to be moving relative to any other thing around you. And the reason is, if your angular velocity relative to another craft of some sort is 0, meaning it's at a certain spot on your windshield and it's not moving, if your angular velocity is 0, one of 2 things is true. You're either on a collision course, I guess 3 things. You're either on a collision course, it's going directly away from you, or you're on a parallel path. But that first one, collision course, is a really big deal. When you're intercepting a missile, for example, if you have your theta dot equals 0, your change in angle equals to 0, you're going to hit it. Or if you're an aircraft and you see a light and it's not moving, it's going to hit you. That's pretty crazy. When we see this thing come up and we start seeing how it moves, I'm like, oh man, this is cool. We're using the scientific method and reasoning to figure out what this thing is and where it is. And when it comes to 217 meters away from us and just locks in, like, oh man, it's on a parallel path. This is so cool. I loved that whole thing because I was like, man, because I have seen a contact on a screen and been like, what is it? Is it a person? Are they good? Are they bad? What are they? So I really enjoyed that scene. And then we get to dock to the thing. We get to meet Rocky after getting these cylinders thrown to us, which is pretty cool. What do you think about the cylinders that went from Rocky's ship to our ship? What do you think about that? To the Hail Mary?
Well, both the cylinder and the approach scene were really fun for me because I was seeing the human side of it, the intelligence side of it. Just, okay, my wife doesn't believe this happens. And it's a funny place where we're different. I'll use traffic as an example again. When we're driving, I can tell when someone just isn't paying attention or when a certain personality type is operating a vehicle. I can detect the confidence levels and insecurity of certain types of drivers based on what they do in response to little nudges of stimuli here and there. And an insecure driver bleeds insecurity. You can see it so clearly. And I'll be like, okay, keep an eye on this guy. He has an issue. No, he's just driving. He's not paying attention. No, he's paying attention. I know what he's doing. Look at the color, shape, size of the vehicle. Look at what he's doing. Look at the way he's positioned in the lane. He's fully in control. He's fully cognizant. He's working out issues over here. He's interpreting you, Camilla, as meaning something with your movements, but you don't. He does. So we're just going to keep eyes on this. And it's funny. I don't know that we'll ever agree that this is real, but this is one of those few places where I'm going to just go ahead and say I'm right and she's wrong. Oh, that dude does mean something. She is right in that sometimes people don't mean anything. But Destin Sandlin, you can tell when someone is moving or orienting in a way that is cognizant, intentional, and calculating. Yes?
Yeah, if they're dancing with you. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, you know. And so I loved that the first contact was traffic. That it was, wait a minute. Okay, I see what you're doing in your lane. You're orienting off of me. Yeah, that was sweet. And then the cylinder comes out. I love that reverse threading was a hurdle that had to be overcome. That was really fun as well.
Reverse threading, what does that mean?
They didn't thread the canister the same way we do. Lefty, loosey, righty, tighty came into part of the equation of first contact. I thought that was a blast.
Yeah.
As well. I loved the mystery of ammonia. Just that puff of, what is that? And don't spell it out for us. You know, give us a while to think it through. I loved the way all of that played out. And I loved the way those were also the first hints of this not being a superior alien race. In First Contact, you get the hint that their weaknesses and strengths and their biology and their environment prompted them to learn certain things that we didn't learn, but our situation prompted us to learn certain things that they didn't learn, like the radiation question. That just hadn't occurred to them. That was awesome. I mean, that took me to places I had never thought about in terms of what alien life would be like and what they would have figured out. I've always just felt like if we ever meet them, they're better than us and they know more stuff. But it's an uneven learning arc that gets introduced even in that First Contact scene.
There's a scene in the Space Trilogy by C.S. Lewis where the protagonist there, his name is Ransom. He's on a different planet and he meets the Hrasa, an alien species. And they're on this planet and they get in a boat. And Ransom has a thought. He says, "Oh, it's a boat. I guess that's how boats would be everywhere. Like everybody that made a boat would make a boat like that." And it has to do with buoyancy forces and physics and all these types of things. It's interesting because when the cylinder came over and you have the threaded seal at the top, I was thinking, yeah, threaded fasteners are the answer. And that's a step beyond just physics. It's like from an engineering perspective, threaded fasteners are a really good answer to a question of how to seal a capsule of some sort. I've got a water bottle right here with a threaded fastener on top, which I think is interesting. So that was fun to think through. Like, okay, this is an engineering species that has the ability to machine or something like machine. And I love that the material xenonite is introduced, because when he chips off a little piece or puts it through the spectrometer, it's a noble gas in a solid form. What the heck is that?
Okay, I'm glad you're asking that too, because I felt like just in ignorance, I must not be understanding the material. But this is meant to be outside the box of what would be normal for even someone in your line of work.
1,000%. And there are really interesting things that he did. Like xenonite was another literary tool that just answered all the engineering problems that we have. Oh, we need an infinitely strong tensile strength in a thing. Well, xenonite. Oh, we need something that's harder than diamond that'll blah, blah, blah. Obviously, xenonite. And so it's interesting that this other literary tool, I think xenonite from a engineering perspective is incredibly valuable, and it answers a lot of problems that they have, which is interesting because later in the book, it ends up being the opposite.
The kryptonite.
Yeah, astrophage is the positive thing at the beginning of the book. No, excuse me. It's the negative thing at the beginning of the book, and then later it flips to the positive thing. And then on the other side, we have xenonite. That's this amazing, perfect thing that ends up being our downfall. I thought that was pretty fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
There's a ton of structure like that in the book where, again, because the book isn't simply there's a bad guy and there are good guys, and the good guys have to grow and develop enough to defeat the bad guy. That's a perfectly great way to write a story. Most of the classics we love follow that kind of hero's journey arc. That's tons of fun. But that typically lends itself to a 3-act structure, where the first act is where you get a sense of the protagonist's original setting and what they're fighting to save and what their weaknesses are, but also what their potential are. New cast of characters is introduced from various Aristotelian archetypes. Act 2, we understand the threat better, some early progress, but then we realize we have a lot of growth that needs to happen. Act 3, toward the climax, a big showdown, whatever it might be. The plot structure here, I've thought about this a lot. I think it's built like 2 forward slashes right next to each other. I've never seen this structure before. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like if you just reached down to your keyboard and typed //. So 2 plot lines are moving forward at the same rate. And by the time you get to the end of the book, plot line 1 from the past has reached the same point as the beginning of plot line 2 that you're following through the rest of the book.
That's a great way to describe it.
And the way the elements,
xenonite.
Xenonite, am I saying that right?
Yeah.
And the astrophage and the way they kind of flip in terms of what they do and how they work fits, I think, with that double / structure. It was really fun to think about the way the story was built.
What do you think about the moment when, well, I really enjoyed that they were initially communicating with models, physical things, because they're physical beings in the physical world. And of course, like, this is the star I'm from. I'm going to show you a picture of it. This is what your ship looks like. This is what mine looks like. And I'm going to build a tunnel between them. I'm going to show you a model of this. I thought that was brilliant. But what did you think of the moment where we meet Rocky, who is a spider-like 5-legged being, and he's got a carapace, like a turtle shell, and he has the ability to do all these interesting things. What do you think about the period of time where we're trying to learn language so we can communicate with each other, math, units? Of course, they're base 5 because they have 5 legs. We're base 10 because we have 10 fingers.
Weren't they base 6 because they had 3 fingers on each claw?
Oh, you're right. Thank you. Yeah, they're base 6. Thank you for that. We're figuring out those things and the common structure with how to communicate. It's a great thing that, we both have sound and we can communicate. What did you think about that whole thing? Because they were building up, not only did we build up science from first principles early in the book, we had to bring up humanity's ability to communicate from first principles later in the book. And I thought you would really enjoy that.
You're right. To me, that was the heart of the book. Couldn't get enough. I adored the center chunk of the book where they meet each other. and they have to figure it out. Like you got to be able to talk before you can solve these potentially, literally world-ending, solar system-ending problems, galaxy-ending problems, potentially. But in order to do it, you got to figure out how to say the number 2 to each other, to a stranger. And then the payoff of the relational effort that was put in, things that seem silly or trite. It was lovely. It was artful. It was one of my favorite sequences I've ever encountered in a book ever. It was like what the scene in that old, not very good Antonio Banderas movie called The 13th Warrior could have been. That movie was lousy, but there is one great scene in the middle.
Oh, yeah.
Where Antonio Banderas... Oh, you remember the scene?
Yeah, he learns the language.
Describe it.
Yeah, so he's sitting around a fire and he's looking around at all the warriors, and he's a Muslim guy, and they're speaking their Nordic language or whatever it is, and he's just watching. And the way it's edited is perfect because they're speaking in their native tongue, and then gradually you get little hints of it's English for the purpose of the movie, but it demonstrates understanding gradually unfolding. And then finally, one of the guy's mother they insult his mother, and he replies to defend his mother, and they're like, "How do you know?" And he said, "I listened." It's gorgeous. It's
wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
great.
and if that whole movie had been as good as that scene, that would be a classic for the ages, and everybody listening would know the movie and be quoting lines from it. But Project Hail Mary gives us an even more robust version of that, and it takes us more inside the head of the characters who are trying to solve the problem. But even the early stuff, like I like that they gave us the clumsiness, for example, of are we talking about an atomic number or the weight of this particular, whatever, iron ball.
Sphere,
I don't remember whatever it was. And I made the same wrong assumptions as Ryland in that moment. And I had the same realization. Oh, no, of course they have a periodic table. Of course they have a way they categorize it. It was so fun. And I felt like I was learning to communicate with an alien while it was going on. But you know this to be true. You've worked on Spanish. When you learn, even clumsily, a second language, there's so many principles of your native tongue that you've just never had to think about that you learn for the first time. And so for me, I felt like in that heart of the book, I felt like I learned a lot about science, just stuff I've never thought about why I know it. But seeing them have to explain it to each other and figure it out, going back to first principles, made me have to go back to first principles. I felt like I had a lot of growth in that middle part of the book as well.
I think one thing that irritated me about the book is the fact that the Iridian atmosphere was 29 times that of Earth. 29 atmospheres is a lot. And engineering-wise, that bugged me that they made an airlock and they can just open the airlock, shut the airlock, and just flip some valves. I didn't like that. I would have liked the atmospheres to be 3-to-1 or something like that, more comparable. That would have been better for me from an engineering perspective. So that's a thing that bugged me.
That pinged for me a little bit too. Like, was that just an unsatisfactory explanation of how the airlock could function between those, that's such a difference?
I didn't think that the atmosphere needed to be that high of pressure in order for everything to work. I mean, I love the fact that he talked about, they built the spaceship with flat panels, which is not how you would build a spaceship. All that's completely accurate. Just the fact that it was a 29x atmosphere that just really bugged me. Another thing that bugged me is they're on this spacewalk. They've developed all this stuff. They've got this friendship, and they've developed this way. We're going to go down, and we're going to try to find the predator to astrophage. And it's going to be at this level in this atmosphere on this one planet. When they get ready to do that spacewalk, I love the fact that they use the Orlan suit. The Orlan suit is the Russian, Orlan I think means eagle. It's the Russian spacesuit. And the beautiful thing about the Orlan is you can get in and out of the back hatch yourself. I have worn the American EMU, basically the EVA suit. It is very difficult to get in and out of. It's a bear. And I think the Orlan suit's awesome because you can just get in the back hatch, like a crab molting in reverse almost. Mm-hmm. They put a lot of wear and tear on this suit. I mean, he did so many EVAs. I also didn't like that he did not wear the cooling garment that goes inside. I thought that was an interesting choice. But there's one scene where they're going down to get the astrophage, and they've made this xenonite chain, and they're bringing it up. And I was thinking about Nate Saint dropping a bucket from his little yellow airplane down in Ecuador and getting a sample from down below. I was thinking about all these types of things. But he did that EVA in 1.5 G. I did not like that, because when I wore the EVA suit, the NASA EVA suit, that is all you can do to stand up. It is so heavy. And so you're just standing there, it's just like, okay, I guess I'm going to be completely vertical. I'm not going to move at all because I'm going to fall over if I do. It's just heavy. And so when he said, okay, and oh man, I'm doing the spacewalk in 1.5 G, I thought to myself, okay, that's one of the only knocks I've got in the book. I don't think we needed this EVA to be 1.5 G. So those are a couple little technical things.
But remember at the beginning, he was saying like how he was like so surprised at how good a shape he was in, and just like compare that to your relative frailty. Just, you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
nothing
true.
personal, but we're
Yeah,
on a
he was
Zoom call,
beach
I
bod
can-
buff, he said.
got
Yeah.
a pretty good look at you. You're doing great, man. I'm not kidding. Your shoulders right there, you're thicker than even when I saw you like 2 or 3 months ago when I was there hanging out. I can tell you've been hitting the pull-ups and
Just been
you've been
shrugging
steady,
a lot.
man. No, it's not true. You've been working out. You're doing great.
Thank you.
It's very evident.
I'm trying hard. I had a goal to get 10 pull-ups, and for some reason I ran out of gas at 9, but I finally got 10 pull-ups the other day. I was very excited about that. That's hard to
You
do
were
for
at
me.
0 when you first brought that up with me.
Yeah, it's hard, but I'm excited about it.
Yeah, you should be. Nice job. So maybe now, if you got in the suit again, you'd be like, oh, 1.5 G, no problem.
No, I don't think I could do it.
No, you're a humble man.
I thought it was cool that they worked on the EVA together, and I love the fact that Rocky was an engineer and Grace was a scientist, and they each had different skill sets. I love that. The fact that Rocky has total recall, that's a big help.
Yeah,
Man,
it didn't hurt.
His muscles being steam powered, that was interesting. I've never considered anything even remotely like that, but it's my understanding that spiders kind of work like that. Like they have fluid that they pump in their bodies to move their arms and legs. I think that's true.
I have no idea.
I don't know. I need to figure that out. But okay, so
I thought
they
the
get,
healing sequence was really interesting. When
Yes.
Rocky got all roughed up and then Grace is like, oh man, all that soot and everything, that's got to be horrible for him. I'm going to blow that out. And he's like, basically it's the equivalent of power washing somebody's scabs. Dude.
it's a bad day.
Yeah,
There's-
he meant well.
There's so much we could talk about, but I think for sake of time, because I've got a soccer game to go to, I want to get to the moment where, okay, they get astrophage. I think it's really cool that they basically enrich astrophage, or they use evolutionary biology to systematically make it more and more resistant to nitrogen. And just a thing that's being killed only by nitrogen, that was fascinating. I think it's cool that they get up to 8.25% nitrogen resistant. That was a neat thing. But there's this moment where Grace and Rocky say goodbye. They clearly have a friendship. They love each other. They've solved this problem together. They go their separate ways. Every day, Grace spins down the ship, turns the Petrovoscope over, and just looks at Rocky burning in the opposite direction. What did you think about that?
The whole goodbye sequence was, yeah, it took my brain to interesting places. The whole arc of their relationship, you're like, well, one or both will die, or this is literally the biggest separation in the history of fiction that I can picture. This can't be overcome. This relationship is really over. You're not even going to be able to communicate. Nothing. There is a poem. I'm going to get the name wrong. It's something about Ballyshannon. It is written by an Irishman in the 19th century, saying goodbye to his home. I'm looking it up here on the western coast of Ireland. You know, things didn't work out, and he's got to go to the new world. And it's just this lovely lament. I mean, Ireland, I mean, it's an island of poets. Everybody there talks like a poet. It's remarkable. And there's this one that, Adieu to Ballyshannon. There it is. William Allingham is the author. Camilla's dad, I think, used to quote this to her when she was a kid. I don't know why. They're not Irish. It's just this heart-wrenching poem of yearning and loss on the eve of leaving the Emerald Isle, leaving what's always been home for family and going to a new world. You'll never be back. And that poem crossed my mind in the run-up to and the goodbye sequence between Grace and Rocky. Like, this is what it must have felt like in the ancient world when, now we can zip around in planes and stuff. But back then, if you left, you were gone. And it was goodbye to everything.
Adieu to Belshanny? Is that it?
I'm sorry?
Adieu to Belshanny? Belshanny? Is that it?
That might be the Gaelic on it, but Ballyshannon or Ballyshanny.
Oh, okay.
Ballyshanny.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Yeah, it was amazing. And I love that he kept looking back at Rocky and like seeing the light of his rocket motor was a way of saying, there's my buddy, Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But when he figured out that xenonite was permeable to Talmiba and that it was going to destroy Rocky because Rocky had xenonite fuel tanks, he has a decision to make.
Yeah.
And I was like, interesting. And then I think back to, there's this scene where the Beatles are being made by that Canadian guy. And he goes, "You believe in God?" And they have this really interesting, isn't it cool that we can blah, blah, blah. I think that was a really interesting character in the book.
Mm-hmm.
He fires off the Beatles and then he decides to go to Rocky. I thought that was really cool because it's him. He was a coward. There was this moment where Strat's like, "Will you go save Earth?" And he's like, "No, I'm going to stay here and teach. I don't want to die." So he is a coward. And so this is the redemption scene.
There you go.
Where he's like, and he's not even thinking about it. He's not doing it to prove that he's not a coward. He's doing it because of actual love for his friend. And he recognizes, I can save two worlds and I will never get the glory for it with the people that matter in my life. They're just going to think I'm dead. What an interesting thought experiment.
And what a beautiful arc. Also, I like the way that the whole scenario was facilitated and set up by the fact that there's nobody looking anymore. I mean, with the bending of time and whatnot, you're forever from Earth. There is no social structure. You're not trying to score any points. All that gets stripped away from his life. He's out here in the void of space, simply running the calculation of what matters, what is right. And when all of that is stripped away, what emerges is a guy who's changed, who's grown, who thinks differently about things, who prioritizes differently. Easy for me to say, but obviously that was morally the right call. But I felt the pain of it when he reversed course. That was tough. Adieu to Ballyshannon. You have now fully given up on the dream of going home to that hero's welcome, that Pompey or Caesar style triumph that would have, the ticker tape parade through the streets celebrating the hero of Earth, the hero of the solar system, the hero of the galaxy, the greatest hero in the history of all the heroes. Take a back seat, Caesar. Take a back seat, Alexander the Great. Take a back seat, Patton, Eisenhower. You guys are nothing compared to Ryland Grace. And he skips his parade, turns around to save his friend. Pretty cool.
He's basically Bruce Willis in Armageddon.
Wow.
I'm joking. So, no, it's a really cool thought experiment. I loved it. And then just that meetup when they finally, the fact that he's scanning space to try to find Rocky and he uses light and he uses the speed of light and the reflection of the brightness. I don't think it would have worked like that in terms of light. I'm just going to say the petrovoscope must be very, very, very sensitive because you lose when you're emitting from a point in a cone, you lose energy very, very fast. I want to say it's an R-cube term. It might be R to the fourth. I don't remember. It's a radar thing. But I don't know. I thought it was interesting how he scanned and found him and got there, figured everything out, goes back, and the end of the book, he's eating a me burger, which is hilarious.
Yeah, that was tough. I wonder if that'll make it to the movie. I don't know how that'll play in Hollywood. I mean, by that point in the film, people will pretty much be done with their snacks, but you don't want to run something like that early on in a crowd pleaser movie. I think people will just set down the popcorn. That made me a little queasy. I set my coffee aside when he said that. I didn't want anything in my mouth.
I thought it was fascinating that the last scene of the book is him being a teacher back with his kids,
Loved it. Yeah.
But the first thing he said is, what is the speed of light? And that was interesting because they don't have light receptors on their bodies. And so he's introducing a whole concept to this whole alien race. I thought it was a great ending.
Yeah,
And,
all the way back to what I was saying about the first contact, introducing the idea that our environment and who we are caused us to prioritize learning certain things. Their environment and who they are caused them to prioritize learning certain things. I had not thought about that concluding question. Obviously, the question has lingered with me, but I hadn't thought about that concluding question being a furthering of that theme.
Yeah. It's interesting because ultimately he dreams of going back to Earth and giving Strat what for. But in the end, she was right. She was very right. She was righter than she knew she could be. Because they saved two worlds. He was the guy. It's interesting. It's a really interesting. I thought it was a great book. I really enjoyed it.
Who's the hero of the story?
Yeah, it's Grace. It's got to be Ryland Grace. I think so.
Yeah.
And it's the hero because he made that decision in that moment. I think that's why he's the hero.
Yeah. But also, Earth isn't saved without the Iridians. So it's all of them going total war on the problem. And it's also all of humanity. Like everybody went total war on the problem.
Oh, yeah. Interesting.
Like in the streets, people did stupid crap, I'm sure, in both places. Okay, whatever. But there was something about these two very disparate set of circumstances out of which these two races emerged that gave them a certain mettle, a certain character, a certain integrity, a certain ability to lock in when you need to lock in. And neither world lives without the other world.
Cool.
I really like that. I mean, Star Wars Episode 1, George Lucas tried to explore that. The surface and the underwater are linked. You must understand this. But it was just so flimsy. It was so ridiculous. But here, so often in movies and shows and stuff, it's like the friendship and teamwork are very important. Maybe the real treasure are the friends we made along the way. It's so trite. Here, they really took the time, Andy Weir took the time to build out a mechanism, a metaphor, an explanation for really seeing the value in people who don't think like you and who are not from where you are from.
It might even be scary. Yeah.
It might even be scary, but it's not trite. And so often that lesson comes with a little finger wag and no meaningful thought behind it, just a trite lecture. Like most other trite lectures, it means nothing. Here, I love that there was flesh to it. No, really think about this. Our environment, our upbringing, who we are, who we hang out with, it causes us to ask different questions. That's great. But different people's environments are going to, by necessity, prompt them to learn different things, make different discoveries. And as a result, there's going to be gaps in knowledge, but the long process of being born out of ancient traditions or whatever it might be with different sets of circumstances, there's a really plausible, smart explanation for why the vast diversity of what happens among different people and different cultures and different ancient civilizations all coming together. It's not just a nicety. There's a plausibility to why we would know different stuff and why that would be so complementary to each other. I thought it was not overly on the nose. There was a soft touch to it. It wasn't like, oh, I could watch the show. Okay, yeah, and okay, everything, there's a little tisk-tisk about something at the end. Christian movies have a little tisk-tisk. movies that come from other perspectives have a little finger wag at you. This one just never did it. It exhorted you toward goodness in a very thoughtful way, and I appreciated it.
I thought it was great, man. I am looking forward to the movie. I'm excited about it. I'm really pumped. You're going to go see it tonight, right?
Tonight. Yep.
Okay.
That's why we had to cram this in, man.
I know, right?
We made it happen. We got it done.
I don't have the ability to watch it tonight, but I'm going to watch it super soon. And do you just want to do a whole episode on the movie?
Oh, wow.
Is that too much?
Let's watch the movie and find out. Let's not commit. I'm open to it.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. That's our reaction to the book. I hope you enjoyed it, Third Chair. I loved it. I thought it was great.
Dude, this is a blast. Thanks. Great idea. Thanks for pushing me.
Thanks for cramming the book, dude. Oh, by the way, one last thing. The Audible version of the book, not sponsored by Audible here. I love the fact that every time Rocky spoke, it was like you could hear the tones. I thought that was, from an audio production perspective, I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, and a masterpiece of delivery. I just did an audiobook for Audible, and it's way, way harder than I thought. That was very humbling, and my audiobook is not nearly of the delivery quality of whatever this, I don't know the gentleman's name. Ray Porter.
He killed it.
He's a gifted man. That was art. It was beautiful.
Absolutely.
I was humbled by how well he read that book to me, and I'm grateful.
Oh, it's awesome. Sweet.
All right, cool, buddy. All right, catch you soon.